Hello and greetings. Welcome to the latest edition of the First Day Podcast. It's a show about whatever we want it to be. You know, we used to say it was a mental health podcast, but then we realized too many celebrities were doing wellness, mental health pods, and they kind of ruined it for everyone else. So there's been a backlash, like, maybe we shouldn't call it a mental health podcast anymore because people might get the wrong idea. But we do try to focus on sharing life, wisdom, experience. It's about personal stories so that others can be, not made better or improved, but at least take a lesson or share an experience where someone might have felt alone or they felt isolated. Oh, I don't, nobody else knows what it's like to feel that way. That's the goal of doing that. So today we have a returning guest. Last year was on the show, or was it 2020? Christ, I can't even, I think it was 2021.
Oh boy. I think last year. It was last year. Yeah.
It all blurs together. It's right. It was episode 54, right? So this is a continuing conversation with Mikey. Mikey's back in the house. Welcome, Mikey. Yay! If you don't know who he is, he has his Twitter handle right here. That's _ Kaya Mikey, KUYA MIKEY. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
No longer Diths Mikey.
No, yeah. Too many people are like, what does that mean? So Kuya is like older brother in Tagalog. And it's got Kuya.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got kind of different connotations. Like Janice calls me Kuya, even though Janice is older than me. But
Janice Scurio. Scurio? Yeah. I don't even know. I said her name Scurio. I never said her last name properly,
Scurio,
probably.
Yeah.
Oh, it is Scurio. Okay, good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I actually don't know. I think it's just a life podcast. But what's First Day?
Yeah, First Day of the Rest of Our Lives was the original name of the show. And it was a very long title, so we decided to minimize it. Yeah, First Day. Josh is here, my brother Josh. Hey, Josh. No Leanne tonight. Well, Leanne will be here. She's having technical difficulties, so right now you have to settle for me and Mikey, and that's okay because we have a ton we want to talk about. But it is a life podcast. It's a life lessons, experiences we've had in our own lives that we share, and you can take it or leave it if you want to be like, who cares? Then who cares? That's your prerogative. I do what I want to do. It's my prerogative. Bobby Brown, I don't know if he's canceled or not either. I didn't think about that, actually.
Who knows?
I like that song. Who can say?
We'll go with no for now. Yeah.
So how have you been? For those of you that have never met you, what would you like to let people know about yourself?
Well, wow, I don't even know. Like how do you I guess I'll socially locate myself. I am a mixed Filipino who lives in Seattle, Washington, or so-called Seattle, Washington. Stolen land. And on my during the day, because I don't like to be defined by my work either, or I don't know if you can call it that. I don't get paid.
That's the American way, though, dude. Come on. If we not be defined by our work, what are we really doing here?
So yeah, during the day, I call it econ. I am a clinical mental health counseling intern. I also write about baseball.
Quite well, by the way.
Currently, thank you.
And you have a new gig. You're at 538. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's right. Super excited about that. So, I mean, there's a lot that's not going well just in general, pandemic, whatever. What? Yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. News.
Are you allowed to say that?
Yeah. But,
if you can say it anywhere, you could say it here. Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that are going right. So yeah, I'm really happy about some different writing things that I have going on, and, where my baseball writing's at. Doing a lot of political organizing on the side, and I'm getting paid starting next month. I'm moving internships, so that's pretty unheard of in the counseling field. Hello, Josh. So yeah, it's things are going pretty well given the circumstances, but yeah, that's kind of a little intro into me. It's hard to explain it all in a couple sentences, but
it is. Yeah. That's why it's hard if you're on a dating profile to like encompass yourself in a paragraph.
Hey, they
Yeah,
have
I don't
prompts
know.
now. Yeah.
Oh, they do.
Yeah. I'll have to show
That's
you
good.
later. Maybe I'll share my screen.
Yeah, I would love to. Boy, I mean, when I was on. Oh, here's Leanne. Leanne's here. Hi, Mikey. I'm trying to get on there, but I'm watching while I figure this out. Love you, boys.
Hi,
Thank you,
Leanne.
Leanne. Yes. Josh says paid internships are awesome. I'm glad to see there are paid internships now.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's something. We're still got a long way to go, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you about, so I mean, I know you at least a decent amount, as much as I can know somebody who lives hundreds of miles away from me. And I see a lot of myself in you because you're very passionate about a lot of things. And a lot of that has bled over into social media at times. And we've had some discussions about that. And I've also seen a reduction, at least in my purview, of your expressing things about life, whether it's political stuff, which we all know is like instant fodder for just chaos online immediately, which leads to, but you also have a passion for like meaningful change in the country we live in and the system we live in, which needs to occur, which I completely am with you with. But I'm also 15 years older than you, give or take 13, 14. And I just see it like as a way of like, I don't get fired up anymore because maybe I'm just that much more jaded or not. I don't know. I'm curious. I just want to get some of your thoughts on that. It's kind of a open-ended question, I suppose, but
yeah, it scares me. I think about the day that fire goes away. That flippant part of me that's kind of sometimes antagonizes people. It's not always good, but it comes from a good place. I think that everything that we do comes from a good place. They might have negative repercussions, but let me say most things that we do come from a good place. Yeah. I gotta avoid getting canceled here. Yeah. But I think before, in early 2020 and preceding, I think it was a lot of just, arguing to argue and there wasn't as much of a, I would say things and it wasn't necessarily like with a goal in mind. Whereas now I see a lot of the things I say politically, I see them as positive propaganda. I see them as ways to, it's not the only thing because there's much more that needs to be done. But I think it is a way of radicalizing people, and I think that's necessary. So yeah, I mean, I feel like it's just different. I do know what you mean. For my own mental health, I think I just I've curated my my timeline, so I don't have to see those things that I don't want to see, and I don't have the self-control to not engage when presented with it over and over again. So now I'm just not presented with it as much, and I don't have to engage, and that's lovely. And I've been having a much better time on social media. So that's part of it. And I think, some things transpired that it's just like, yeah, this isn't worth it. So it might just be that, I'm going about things in a more productive manner now. Who knows though? Because I still, I'll engage. I'll I'll tell people when they're being fucking stupid.
As you should.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely, I'm a blunt person. I'll talk directly, and I try to do that as best I can and often as I can. But I also know there's a time and a place, context, the person I'm dealing with, I will maneuver in a way which I feel would be more, I'm trying to get I fail at it all the time, but I'm trying to get the most beneficial results
yeah,
out of every experience, which I don't know what the hit rate on that is, maybe 33% or something.
Yeah, it's not great, and that's the thing, is I was just like, why am I devoting my energy to this. And so
Yeah.
I didn't stop, but um,
I hope
you
that we know
know,
each other when you're 41 or 40 years old. I really do. And I mean that first off. And then the other reason I'm curious about it is I just want to see what you're like and what your views are at that point. I wonder if it's just a natural progression of the routine of being a human being
mhm.
in this country, or if it's specific to certain cultural backgrounds or genres, or to people who live in certain areas of a country, or to people that grew up in different types of families. There could be so many variables where it starts to split off where you really can't pinpoint connective tissue.
Yeah, I know people who are about, around there or a lot older, and it encourages me. It makes me think that, some things will change, a lot of things will change, but that I'll maintain, a lot of this. I mean, I'm just really passionate about the things that I'm passionate about. Um,
But this is one of the things that are most frightening about living in this country is it will dull you out. I talked about this a year or so ago on another podcast with some guys who were my age, and
mhm.
I'm like, man, what the fuck happened to us? I mean, we do have these passions, but I started to look around and realize that I had been kind of dulled out and reduced and minimized my hope, my desires, because it seemed hopeless and pointless because of all the negative things I've seen around me and the failures of previous generations of people who tried to make meaningful change with
Mhm.
government, whether it was national, federal or local or state wise. And now I looked around and said, hey, maybe it's the food I eat. Maybe it's the lifestyle I live. It could be a lot of things. It's not
Yeah.
just one thing.
Yeah. And for the most part, I do think that it's a progression. I mean, I think that a lot of people, they might even be on the radical side of things, and we've even seen, some pretty revolutionary people just, end up literally, like I just watched a documentary in the Philippines. There were two people who helped co-found, several different groups, like the New People's Army in the Philippines. And by the end, one of them had run for, I think, mayor or something, maybe a senator, and he ended up on the opposite end of the bargaining table, like literally, you know.
Yeah. They'll just
So
absorb you in. That's one of the big fears. Yeah, we'll just absorb them
yeah.
in and then we'll give that person what they want. And once you get kind of comatose to it, even if you had them, that's a great example. That really is. There are other people who never did that. And that's why I respect people who've sacrificed actual years, like a Nelson Mandela,
Mhm.
for example, who gave up decades of his life to be stuck in a prison. I think that's the ultimate price you can pay.
It's really wild. I mean, I don't know. I think a lot about that, and what that might look like for myself. But like I said before we started, a lot of this stuff I take a day at a time, a week at a time, month tops. Like man, if you would have told me 3 months ago that I would be writing for 538, I would be like, I don't believe you. um, so I don't know. Things happen fast. Like
They
my
can.
internship sites, I was planning on staying at the one that I'm currently at. I got an email, uh, called within 30 minutes, getting the email from my school. Within, I mean, I called them. We had a conversation. Within a day or two, I was pretty much like, yeah, I'm gonna switch. And that's a huge change and really hard for me because I'm a really passive person and I'm like, okay, if you want me to stay, I'll do it. But like,
Really?
you know, yeah.
Yeah, your online persona doesn't appear that way to me. That's fascinating.
Yeah, it depends on the situation. Um, yeah, it really depends. Like with to authority figures, it's pretty tough for me. I'm a people pleaser, most of the time. And I don't know. I think that's why it's so interesting because the people that like I feel like I'm well respected, on in whatever circle that we're generally in our overlap because for the most part I treat people very respectfully unless Hello, Leanne.
Hi. So sorry, boys. Continue, Mikey.
You're all goody. I was just talking about how, I feel like I'm very well respected within kind of our circles, and I think that's because I, generally speaking, treat people very well. There are times when I don't necessarily, and I think that's either when I've just kind of been worn down and like lose my cool for a second. It's pretty easy on on a phone, or when I think people kind of deserve it, or so like I think I'm a really kind person. I think I'm a really nice person, but I think I have faults, and I think that they come from
No.
right.
Who invited this guy?
Who did invite me? Was it Mike? It was Mike.
Yeah.
I think it was me. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I want to talk to you again.
Yeah.
You're bringing up some points that are, I want to ask something I think is almost like, oh, I don't, should I ask this? But if that means I should, then I'm going to, and you can say whatever you want.
Yep.
So you're saying there's some things I wish I hadn't done, and maybe I was tired sometimes, or life just got to me and I was exhausted. And sure, when you post something online, it happens, it's done. Oh, okay. Well, there it is. Somebody saw it, or people saw it. And you're talking about making change though. So I felt that you were trying to make changes within fantasy baseball. And for those of you that don't know, who are watching this or listening to this, in the world of baseball and fantasy baseball, a lot of the talent who actually play the game are overwhelmingly, there's a lot of non-whites who are playing the game. But the people who control the game and the gatekeepers who write about it, etc., a lot of old white dudes or middle-aged white guys. I guess I'm a middle-aged white guy now. I mean, I'm Jewish, but Jewish is white, let's be honest. So, but you did things like, I think it was the worst white people tournament thing. Did you do that one time?
That's a good example. And I thought it was funny, and I thought it was clear that it was kind of like parodying Danny Vietti's because that's basically what he did. That was the point, is that he was
there's this other guy.
He was basically putting the worst baseball accounts into this bracket and putting it forth like, these are the best accounts that you got to follow, and let's see who wins. And like Trevor Bauer would win. Trevor Bauer is a rapist. Like, we can argue not that you want to argue semantics, but people can argue semantics. But I would not call a good person, and I would not call a lot of people on that bracket good people.
That's fair.
And so I was parodying that basically, and just saying, here's a bracket of a bunch of terrible white people. And it was a little too flippant. My flippancy got the best of me, and yeah, I mean, that was the closest I've ever been to like getting canceled out of any sort of space. That was a really bad night.
Really?
Did you keep the bracket up? Like, how did that work?
I was asked to take it down by my pseudo employer.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know you. Okay. Yeah.
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 Okay.
Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron's here, by the way. Two of my favorite brains right here. Was introduced to you both through baseball, which we're talking about, but love hearing you guys talk about the rest of your life experiences.
Leanne,
good to see you, Aaron.
We'll soon be your third favorite brain.
I was like, I hope that came up before I came on.
Aaron lives right now. Leanne, we're supposed to like hang out with Aaron. He lives right here in town. He's been trying to get me to hang out with him for like 5 months, and I'm a total loser failure. So,
he's
Aaron, one day,
Tigers fan, right?
Yeah, he lives up here like 20 minutes north of me. So there's really no excuse except
over that hill behind you.
Yeah, there's massive hill. As soon as you go over it, the sunshine, we'll meet right there for a lovely brunch. But I appreciate you answering that. Yeah, because that was the one example I was thinking of. But you said it was a really bad night for you. Was it because you felt like the backlash was painful for you, or what do you mean by that?
So here's the thing. That was, I think, the night where I was like, I have to curate my online experience, and I have to change my notification settings. So it was basically notifications, who I follow, who follows me, mutes, blocks, soft blocks, which is blocking someone and then unblocking them so they unfollow you. Whole thing.
People said cruel things to you that night? Or typed cruel things?
I mean, people were I mean, Modica threatened to kick my ass. Someone called me mentally disabled. People were essentially calling for my head. People were saying I should be fired from a job that I make $10 an article on. It's like, oh no.
Please don't lose that.
And saying really horrible shit. Like they weren't saying like kill yourself, but they were getting pretty close.
Right. They're insinuating, yeah.
But yeah, and it was like people with massive followings, like Draft Cheat, sending people after me, like basically doing the barstool thing. And I think actually there were some stoolies that were coming after me, and people were DMing me and saying just like horrible shit. And
I believe that.
Every time someone liked, retweeted, quote tweeted, replied, DM'd me, I would basically get a notification. And so now I've changed that. So yeah, for sure, Josh. It's you have to follow me to respond to my tweets. And I believe if I do not follow you, or if you like don't have if you don't have a non-default display photo or a random email or a non-verified email or phone number, whatever, there's a bunch of different settings that I just won't get your notification, which sucks sometimes. Because, you know, someone might say like a nice thing about an article, but it's like, you know, what's the cost benefit? And the cost is much more than the benefit. So it's
harder to meet people, right? I mean, one of the reasons I do it is I wanted to connect with new people out there who I didn't even know existed. And I've learned people like you, I didn't know you were out there, and now we know each other. So that limits that for you. And that sucks.
It is a bummer. But it's just the nature of, you know, being online and existing in the way that I exist in that space, for better or for worse. And so, yeah, I just decided, you know, I have really bad FOMO. Like I have clinical OCD. And so it's really hard for me mentally to do things like that.
You do? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so it was kind of tough, but I mean, when big things are happening, I was like, all right, we're going to make a change.
Yeah. So, God, when you don't get those notifications, do they go in like a separate like folder that you can go through and see all of them, or you will never receive them?
They're just yeeted into the ether. Okay. So I just have to come across them, or someone else has to, I don't know if they can like or retweet them onto my notifications, but someone else would have to, yeah, exactly. Someone else would have to respond to it, and, you know, and then I would see it, and then I would scroll up, be like, oh, I missed this, you know, thing. And then also muting certain words, different hashtag, you know. I've muted a lot of fantasy terms. Even though, you know, I still play a little bit, but I have formerly renounced myself from the industry space, and I think it's been super nice.
Good for you.
Yeah, I think about you a lot when I think about my continued journey through it, and then I'm like, okay, well, I am a white dude. I'm also older. I've been around a bit. I already told you I was, you know, less motivated and enthused, even though I'm known for my energy, I guess. That's just kind of strange that I'm so dejected at times from life. But I do think about you a lot because I do appreciate some of the things you said about trying to change the space. But the problem is some of those things in conversations had to happen in real life too, not just online. And I don't know how much of them, if ever, and this is not just about you. I'm just saying overall within fantasy baseball, the people who write about it and talk about it and play it, do any type of content creation for it, how much of them having these conversations about, okay, what are we doing to grow the game for everybody? Or who are we limiting? Do we realize why we're limiting them or not? I don't know how much that happens, frankly. And it's just like, okay, well, the season's here. Here we go. We had a lockout, which was a piece of garbage disaster where players basically got screwed again. Somehow they agreed to it, unfortunately, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, now baseball is here, and I want to enjoy the baseball because it's here, and I do appreciate the game, and it's a lot of fun. But at the same time, there's all this negative shit that happened with it where I'm like, oh, I can't just ignore that either. So I live in both of those worlds all the time, but I don't think not that I'm special or anything, but I don't think a lot of people are like me. But I feel like you are. I feel like you are for sure like that too. You definitely get that. If not, probably live more in the other world, where you're like constantly thinking about, man, this is not fair. This is a strange place when you look at it from a certain point of view.
I think that's the issue. I think that's what really drove me out is, I mean, I think there's two things. One is that like today, I saw Fast put up a poll and it was like, should Kershaw have gone out for the 8th inning or whatever it was? 80% of people said yes. And it's like his last fastball is 88.5 or 6 or something. Like it was like a changeup for Robbie Ray. He could really hurt himself, and people just it's not football. It's not like modern day gladiators, but man, people just really want to be entertained. And I'm like, this is so dehumanizing, and I know that Clayton Kershaw wanted to go out there, but I think Dave Roberts made the right call. And honestly, I think if Kershaw wants to go out, I think it's kind of selfish to, we're such a hyper individual society. I don't think that he's thinking. I don't think he's thinking in, like very far into the future at all, for his team, but also not really for his self. So I think that was a really good example.
Josh asked a question here. Is fantasy baseball more about the game, but not addressing what might actually happen, or what might need to make a change in baseball itself, and maybe the fantasy baseball community as a whole? Well, I think they're intertwined. It's a game about what happens on the field. That's what fantasy baseball is, but there's a whole culture surrounding it that the game's only played part of the day. The rest of the time is the talk about what you saw on the field that day, and that's what I'm talking about, I guess.
And clearly people get removed already just watching the game from the humans on the field. You throw fantasy baseball into the mix where it's like players are even less real, quote unquote, and, people send hateful messages to, tell players to kill themselves or threaten their wives or family members on social media. And it's like, what are we doing here? And these are like, some of these people are like fantasy players. I know people who have written articles about players saying that they sucked and weren't going to be good and then tagged them in it. And it's just like,
well, at least they're being direct. I will say that, but
and
not backstabbing.
I've gotten to the point where I'm pretty intentional about how I talk about most players. I try not to be, too dehumanizing. I did call David Fletcher a little rat boy in one article, but I just thought that was funny.
That is funny. See?
Yeah. But I try my best to be intentional. And hey, Sam.
Yeah, we both know Sam too. Again, I have to know everyone. That's my thing. But you guys actually live closer together in Washington. Sam and I have talked on the phone. In fact, one night you guys had just wrapped up hanging out when I talked to him on the phone. That was a few months back.
We just went to a Everett Aqua Sox game within the week. I don't even remember what day that was. Probably last Friday. Who knows?
Oh,
he also found your cat. I mean, that was pretty wild. Right?
Yeah. Wow. I think he had been lost for several days, and he comes into my house, or he's about to walk in, and he goes, "Yeah, I just saw Benny." And I was like, "No, you didn't. I think you saw Queenie, who looks like Benny." And he's like, "No, I think I saw Benny." And I walk out, and I was like, "Hey, motherfucker, where have you been?" And I open the door, and he just like kind of does his little like thing and comes prancing in and eats. I'm like, "You are a monster. I love you, but you're a monster." So yeah, he he was the person who saw Benny, and boy, I think within a couple weeks he had passed away. Yeah.
Oh shit, that's
sorry.
right. Oops.
Yeah.
I
No, you're good.
thought about
I
it
mean,
as soon as I said that. Yeah.
you're good. It's you have to make decisions when it comes to cats, because I don't know, is it humane to have cats inside? I don't know. Like, are we placing human values on the cats? I don't know.
Mhm.
Sure are. I know people that are definitely doing that.
Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know. My cats live a pretty good life. I feed them like 6 times a day, little amounts.
Okay. I was
Not-
like, how big are
not-
these cats?
Yeah. No, just-
Garfields.
you know, but yeah, I struggled with that really badly for a couple weeks, probably a month. Just like, honestly, that was harder for me to deal with than my Lolo passing away, my Lola passing away. One of my colleagues at Lookout Land, like all that happened within a year. And it was the hardest for me. And I think that's because I had the most responsibility for his well-being, and I felt like I could have done a better job of like going out and searching for him, because I just took it for granted. I was like, he'll come back. He comes back if he doesn't come back in one day, he'll come back in 3 or 4 days. And then he just didn't. And I started getting a barrage of texts and calls, and someone sent me a picture of him like laying on his back, which is really, really fucked up. It's like traumatizing.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh.
But yeah, I really miss him, but I've got him cremated. I'm planning on doing a bit of some sort of altar, some sort of space.
Shrine?
Yeah, a little Benny shrine.
Yeah.
My friend got me a little like pocket book of pictures of him and us.
That's ever sweet.
Yeah. So, and I have a shirt. That says Benny. I don't know if you've ever seen the picture, but
I don't know if I have seen
so
that. No.
a little like cartoon picture of him, and my sister got it off Etsy.
Oh, cute.
Yeah, but I miss that boy a lot. He was a really special kitten, cat. He was 18 months, but he did live a good life.
Months.
Yeah,
Damn.
I mean, it was a good 18 months. He spent probably a year of that outside. So,
Can you share then? Some people are saying, good God, that's always a part of a lexicon now. It sucks. I will say this. It's funny, though, in a way, too. By the way, Leanne's here now. Leanne joined the show. For those of you that are here in the podcast version, when her voice popped in, she wasn't here initially, but she figured it out. Good to see you, my love.
Hi.
I want to know, there's people out there who don't always think, how can you compare the death of a human to the death of a pet? And I'm not saying you have to do that at all, but there are people who think that when a pet dies, that people get emotional about it. And rightfully so. I mean, they're part of your life and your family and your experience for however long they're with you. I don't know why we have to compare humans and pets and animals so much like this all the time. Like, well, this is not a human's death. I'm like, why do we have to do that? I'm curious what your thoughts are on that type of thing, and if you've ever run into people telling you how to feel, which I also think is a problem when, because like you want to explain people how you want to give your point of view to them, but to tell them how to feel can really take you down a dangerous road.
Yeah. I probably used to think the same thing because I haven't had very many pets. I had one Yorkie when I was in elementary school. Parents got rid of him pretty quickly because he just went 1 and 2 everywhere inside. And then they found out pretty quickly that they are not good dog parents.
That's a good thing.
Actually, quite bad dog parents. Yeah. Actually, not really good parents.
Yeah. I'd rather that be the case, frankly.
Yeah. And one cat growing up that I wasn't particularly close to. So, I couldn't tell that your hair was blue.
Thank you.
It blends into the sky. It looks great.
The headphones too. Yeah, look, her headphones are blue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
She actually, we have to redo her hair this weekend. It's actually way past. That's you can't see the roots. You can't see her roots. We shouldn't talk about her roots. So.
But
Yes.
but yeah, so I think I
Yeah.
would have said the same thing before. But to me, I'm an existentialist, so it's just like, why are our lives more meaningful than any animal or insect? Really, like
Mhm.
we're all just beings. I don't know, even like a tree. Like I don't know. I think the more that you make the argument, I think the sillier it sounds. I mean, there's a book, and I never read it, but I heard my brothers talk about it a lot, called Children of Time by like Adrian Tchaikovsky. And it's basically just about how like spiders like create this like crazy race. And I think it made one of my brothers stop killing spiders.
Really?
But I'm kind of the same. I just went to someone's house like a week or two ago, and they were like, "Oh, kill that ant that's on the table." And I was like, "I don't want to kill the ant." And they're like, "Kill the ant." I was like, "All right, if you're gonna get mad, I'll kill the ant, but I think it's messed up." And so I if I don't have to, I don't kill spiders or insects or whatever. Um, and I kind of think that it is really arbitrary that our lives are valued more than any other animal. Because I don't know what the basis is, that it's
Ego.
our race. Yeah.
No, it's
That
our conscious. We have conscious thoughts. So
we
since
can
we're
Ego.
think
burdened
real
with it,
good, and we have
yeah,
opposable thumbs.
that's right.
I don't know,
So
but
that's why we got to kill those deer.
and that's kind of the weird thing is I eat meat and I like have no reservations about, it's
It's
hard.
quite delicious, I must say.
It's really hard. I think logically it doesn't make sense, so I just like haven't really thought about it. I don't know.
Probably
It's also
not.
not like all Filipino food is meaty. Like all meat.
Oh, you're screwed. Then.
Everything. Like the breakfast is all meat. Like fish, sausage, spam.
Hmm.
But
Sounds good to me.
What am I gonna do? It's delicious. Yeah.
Leanne doesn't like food, so she doesn't have to worry about that. Yeah, I would. I already told Sam if we ever come out there. Yeah, so I've got plenty of people that hang out with once I finally. I've never been to Washington State at all, so never been to Seattle.
It's very lovely. I think you would like it. It looks
know
like
I
your
would.
background.
It does. It's funny because outside the door here, it doesn't look anything like this. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Okay, but I want to get into some of the counseling stuff. So you are an intern working on your counseling degree, and if you didn't know, Leanne, he's mostly done. He's almost towards the end. He's getting there, and he's only got a couple months left to go here, and he's switching his internships. Yeah, one more semester. Then your hours will be completed. Yes, Sam, I'll get off my arse. Okay,
I agree.
I'm sorry. Josh says, the circle of life. Plants are living things as well, Mikey, so that could be an argument for eating meat.
Okay.
My head's going to explode.
There's nothing we can do.
I just want to live. I just want to live too. But then I know that all of my actions have consequences. So this is what the burden of existence. I'll tell you that. But how has the journey been here? Because when we talked to you, I think you were just getting into it a bit, or you weren't as far in. So you definitely have much more experience now. And I want to ask you about the self-care aspect. You're talking with people. I don't know if you have a focus or not. Is it just general mental health counseling, or because you're not doing like specifically women who've been abused or something? Because there are specialties.
I thought you were looking into grief. No.
Right now I am working with mostly adults, but some children with intellectual and developmental differences. The vast majority of the time that is something that is or looks like autism or Down syndrome. I think that's really the only, some sort of, like the diagnoses are oftentimes like mild intellectual disability or, whatever. So that is my population right now. And that's a population that I have a lot of experience working with since early 2018. I've worked with this population. And so I decided, I'm really interested in seeing what it looks like in a counseling capacity. And for the most part, I work at a community mental health agency.
Oh.
It's really tough because they are very heavily impacted people, not only by their developmental or intellectual differences, but also in that society doesn't support them. The level of the support that they get is very low. And so how much can I do for a person who, I'm trying to think of how much can I do for a person who Social Security gave them a bunch of money, and then a year later they said, oh, we shouldn't have paid you that. Pay us it back. Pay us tens of thousands of dollars back. And it's like, one of my buddies, Aaron Parker, who is a psychologist in Seattle, he once told me that, he worked with, I think it might have been during his internship or some sort of practice in Brooklyn, I think. And he said, with these people, if I could have given them $10,000 over a whole year, that would have done them, or just $10,000, that would have done them much more than I could do with a year of psychotherapy. And so this is kind of where my political beliefs kind of start to blend into all of this, is that I don't want to work in these systems, because then I'm perpetuating the system. So that's kind of what I'm doing, is like I'm doing exactly that, and I'm helping drive the machine.
Yes.
It's pretty much exactly. It's like the same thing as the VA. Like, people are just not supported. And so to me, it's really the same thing as the nonprofit industrial complex, which, the critiques of it are that it helps uphold capitalism, and it helps uphold all of these problems, even though.
Oh, it's a total joke.
Yeah.
Philanthropy is a joke. It's a corporatized setup. I've talked to Leanne about this. It drives me nuts. You have one person who stepped out recently, and that was, wasn't that Bezos's ex? She actually was like going directly. I think, what do you think of her? I think she was actually doing a few positive things. At least I appeared to be from afar.
I think it's the same thing. I mean,
it was okay.
I mean, when you donate money, you get money back. Like, I don't think it's ever altruistic. I don't really believe in altruism. I'm a little bit of a pessimist in that way.
I was like, why don't I get like 1,000 bank accounts from families and just send them money directly to their bank accounts?
Yeah, I don't know how
radical?
it works. I can hardly finish my own taxes.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. But if you have someone like her who has literally like lifetimes upon lifetimes upon lifetimes of wealth, where who cares how much you ended up paying in taxes, because you could pay for it no matter what, it wouldn't matter. And I'm not blaming her. I was actually trying to praise her. This is for everybody. A Bezos, a Gates, any big time dude who's had so much money accumulated, which is what's wrong with our country anyways, is that all this wealth is accumulated into the hands of individuals who have no need for this excessive amount of wealth that they could never give away in a lifetime, half the time. So,
yeah.
Okay, I'll calm down. But
so yeah, I mean, I'm moving into a more general population, and I just know so many people that do such cool work, and I really want to move towards that. Part of me wants to like shave my head and move to the mountains and just never see anyone ever again. But part of me wants to. I told
my brother to do that recently. Go on a walkabout for 6 months. So.
Right. Part of me wants to just not counsel people and get, just a soul eating econ job and just make money and not put any energy into it, so I can politically organize and spend, my energy elsewhere.
So what does that mean? Not counseling at all then? Does it mean you getting out of it?
What that would mean. Okay. And right now that's not my plan, but I don't know. Maybe that means baseball writing.
Yeah. Hey, great. If you could freelance write enough where you could survive on it and then do the things you actually wanted to do to help people in their lives, that would be a wonderful life. I completely agree. And me and Leanne have talked about that a lot.
right there. If you want to pay me, it's
there it is.
But yeah, I mean, I know really cool people who do, have abolitionist practices within their mental health practice, and just do a lot of have a lot of cool modalities that they work with, because I sound like the more that I talk about these things, the more I feel like Alex Jones, like wearing a tinfoil hat. But like like CBT, a lot of these different modalities are inherently capitalistic, because what's happening is they're saying, let's attack the surface level. It's very symptom focused. So let's focus on your symptoms. Let's get you turned around in 6 sessions. Let's get you the fuck out of here.
It's you, not the environment.
Also that I read. Thank you. This is getting me pumped, Mike. I read from the APA. They have these like sample case notes and like sessions that apparently happened, and they just kind of anonymize whatever. And there was this person who their parent died when they were like 12, and they're like, yeah, I don't know, I don't get it. I was doing so well, and then my parent died, and then I started struggling, and I haven't really got better ever since. And the person, they decided to do CBT, and they're like, I know what to do.
Which is a cognitive behavioral therapy for those that don't know.
Let's attack these thoughts. Let's not address anything that has to do with your parent that clearly has gone unresolved, and let's focus on you, who is the problem here. And so, again, that's kind of getting at like other things that I'm not able to do in my current setting, which is really like a feminist therapy approach, where it's saying, let's focus on what you're doing well. Let's see what your strengths are. Let's build you up. Let's empower you. Let's talk about how your society is not doing what it should be, to support you, and how it makes sense it makes sense that you're depressed because you're super poor, because your society's exploiting you, like that kind of thing. So it's inherently political, which is like a huge thing for me. I think that it is unethical for the counseling space to be an apolitical space. And I don't mean that, we need to sit and argue about like Biden versus Trump.
Yeah, not Republican Democrat crap. Yeah.
But anyone who goes through a counseling program is going to talk about sociopolitical problems. And then when you get into the counseling room, you're supposed to drop the political and just talk about social problems or, relational things. And that's bullshit.
Is that an ethical tenet of certain organizations? Or
yeah, let me pull up the ACA Code of Ethics.
Yeah. Covered that 100 times. I never looked into like I know you're supposed to keep your personal bias at home and be aware of other cultural backgrounds so that you understand them and can appreciate them, and not just it's important for you not to dump yourself directly into other people's lives. That part makes sense, but to keep out political,
I think it is a little bit reading in between the lines. I don't know if it says politics specifically, but it definitely talks about like not imposing your values onto clients, which personal values.
That's fair.
So their own values, attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. And the thing is, like, the people who are going to benefit the most from not talking about these things are the people in power. And so that's a great thing about feminist theory, is that the focus is not on the individual. I could rant all night long about things like this. There's also like narrative therapy, which kind of takes you out of, moves you away from the problem, and I don't know. They all have kind of different ways of focusing on the environment.
Josh wants to know, do you believe, Mikey, that there are other avenues that you could make a difference in counseling? Is there?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, you have to resign yourself to the fact that you are going to be existing within the system and you are going to be perpetuating it to some extent. That's true of most jobs. And so I think, that's step number one. If you're going about it in the way that I'm going about it, a lot of people, get kind of the white savior complex and are like, oh, I'm saving everyone, I work for a nonprofit.
Okay, real quick, I want to mention something on that though, because that does make me think about if someone does get helped, it doesn't matter. Like I've always said this, like if charity is provided, and maybe I'm wrong about this, maybe I need to retune what I'm thinking and saying here, because I've always said, who cares what the reasons and motivations are for somebody helping someone? If the person gets helped, that's the bottom line. But you're right. Maybe if they're not actually getting helped and I'm just assuming they are, then maybe I need to re-question. I need to question things and reconsider what I've thought in the first place.
Wait, so say that one more time. Let me.
Yeah. So I've always said, but I've said it blanket like, if you get help, if someone helps you, who cares what their motivation was for helping you, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, I got the help I needed. I got a meal today that I didn't have yesterday. It doesn't solve my problems. It's maybe it happens in micro doses like that, like micro situations where, okay, yeah, that would ring true. In a macro sense, maybe it wouldn't at all. But in micro moments, like when Leanne gave that guy $20, I'm not trying to make you sound like you're the savior, Leanne, but we were walking around during Christmas time. You're like, well, all I have is a 20. You gave him a $20. You gave it to him. Who cares? That helped him in that moment. That was nice. Well, she wasn't trying to do, I know Leanne, she definitely wasn't trying to be a savior there in any way. Mm-hmm. But it made a positive difference, if only temporarily.
And I think what you're saying is that if I was doing it for the tax write-off, then who cares if that guy got a little bit of help? If my reasoning why I did it wasn't true and from the heart, and it was for some other ulterior motive, then what does it matter? But the reason, I think the biggest thing is when we see that the amount of money that is mostly taken from people, not taken, but given from people that really can't afford to be giving this money, but their heart is in the place and they're doing it. And then that it's not going where, like you said, Mike, you can take that $100 and instead of donating it to the big mass breast cancer awareness thing, and you can take that $100 and you can help somebody that's going through chemo, so then they can pay for their cab ride there and all that kind of stuff. It's going to go a lot further than where our money is going.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's definitely like getting the money directly to people, which is, kind of the idea of mutual aid. The issue with that is that if mutual aid organizations don't take it a step further and do some of that, in my opinion, that teaching, about like the circumstances that people exist within, and like political education, then it just becomes a charity, albeit like one that serves the need of people better. But when you really zoom out and you think about it, if no nonprofits existed, if no mutual aid organizations existed, people would be hurting even more than they are now. But people might, once people hurt enough, they're going to fight back and they're gonna say like, I've had enough with this shit. And so putting the Band-Aid over things just kind of, slows the bleeding. If someone was bleeding bad enough, they would get more help. They would do something about it. But since, it's just kind of seeping out of the Band-Aid, they're like, I'm not going to look. It's all right.
Mm-hmm. Leanne, I hate to bring this up, but this actually is too apropos. We were talking about Goldilocks and the Three Bears over the weekend. I brought it up at least twice because I was trying to get the right I was washing my hands and she was turning the faucets. I'm like, that's too hot. Too hot. Please turn that. And she couldn't get it right. Third time she got it right. It was oddly enough. So it reminded me of Goldilocks and the Three Bears about the porridge. That's right. So what I am getting from you, Mike, is what you just said, is that the powers that be, however, and it's not necessarily, it's not, 7 people. It's not 7 Jews. We don't run all the banks in the world. Sorry, I don't know what people think about that, but I've heard that a billion times. That is not accurate. But there are enough power structures in place now where they have found the right balance that is just right to satiate enough people to help enough where they don't revolt or act out in mass because enough people are getting just enough help. And that for them, the people who get to live in the best life all the time, we're talking generations of repetitive wealth and not even wealth, just living a good life. They found just the right amount to give people without, giving enough where there might be meaningful change. That's exactly how I read that.
Mm-hmm.
Nailed it.
That's pretty wild. And I don't disagree with you. And you know what? Unfortunately, people are going to listen to this and they're going to think that there's like a political bent to this show, which this is 96th episode, Leanne?
Something 94, 95.
Where we don't have a,
none of us have said what our political leanings are. We're just
No.
talking about liberating people.
Exactly. We're trying to help people and providing them. There's enough people in pain in large amounts, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions even. But people will listen to this. They will make inferences because of the way the propaganda machine works. It already sets up people to act out and respond. Like they hear buzzwords, they hear phrases. Boom. I know what that is. I know what you're trying to do to me, like, without us even saying the words right now, which is very, very sad. But I think what you're doing is very noble and admirable. And this is how I really feel inside. I don't talk about it enough on my own Twitter feed individually, frankly. And I probably should. I try to focus on like my experiences and give them to people because I really hate telling people how to live too, because I really know how easily things can be taken the wrong way. Like, well, who are you to tell me how to live? And I don't want to get into that shit at all because I won't even do it. But I like what you're saying. I haven't heard a bad thing yet, in my opinion.
Couldn't you guys?
You care.
Couldn't you guys? This might be the first bad thing that you hear on this show. But couldn't you guys consider doing some sort of counseling that was with some of the higher ups that could actually make some kind of change, and either be a divorce counselor because they like their wife is making them go to counseling, or a business counselor or something, and something needs to change. And that's where you start interjecting like, hey, wake up. Here are the things that you could do that could actually make change in your business or in your community. Or am I just like Pollyanna?
Well, if they have family members, they're not going to want things to change. They're going to agree with you and be like, yeah, you know what? You know how many people have sat through, I know some people that work at Capitol Hill now, not that I'm cool or anything, but they work in lobbying. And believe it or not, there's actually good lobbying. Like not all lobbyists are evil corporation lobbyists or like, oil and it exists. Believe it or not, there are people trying to like do meaningful, positive policy change for mental health and stuff like that on Capitol Hill. And it's a disaster.
But are they being
it's just
listened to? That's the thing.
No. I'm saying these people are banging their heads against the wall. I'm trying to give you what you're laying out there is how many meetings have happened, how many different occurrences have happened where people who have the means to maybe control levers of power a little bit more that could swing in the balance of helping a greater good have been like, I like what you're saying, and I want to hear more. It's just a blow off. We already know what a blow off looks like and sounds like, and that's what you get. So I love the idea, Leanne. I think it's very sweet of you. I think that's what would happen. Like, we'll get you in touch with my people. We'll try to set up another meeting soon. I like what I'm hearing. And then, like, next thing you know, it's been a year and a half. You're like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. It's tough to deal with these people. It's kind of like with the police. It's like, it's just a bad apple. Like, we'll get them. And then they get them. And then someone else dies. And it's like, fuck. Well, we'll get them. And, rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
So,
that actually reminds me of, a lot of the stuff you were saying when I first kind of met you online, and I agree to that. I would have used different tactics back then personally, but I'm just saying, you were saying the right thing. There needed to be massive changes, and it is inherently, it's not a racist system as so much as it's a system that is created upon hiding the fact that you're acting and executing racist policies. That's what makes it even more insidious, because you don't realize it, because it's structural racism, right? Structural bigotry, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as a rule of thumb, I think, reform, well, I guess abolition over reform, as a whole is really the way to go, because these systems they're all, the foundation is all, at worst racist, or worse, I don't really know what's worse, or biased, towards the people who make them and who makes them.
Violently murderous against people who are not white, basically.
Yeah.
That's the worst case. And it leaked out. We were in a really radical moment there after George Floyd was killed. He was murdered, and people said defund the police. That became a national outcry. And I, as someone who's lived life a little bit longer, I was like, oh, is this really happening? Am I living in this world? And I actually did get excited for a minute, and then then people, so some other things were thrown around to make people panic, and then there's like, we can't defund, we need to reform, and then the next thing you know, nothing changed, and nothing has changed.
I thought it would get bad enough that, I was like, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the time. Not yet.
Well, there was a pandemic for a moment there where, if it was not to minimize the pandemic that we went through, but if it was a true, bubonic plague pandemic that wiped off a third of the people on a planet at a time, that created a lot more hysteria and chaos, all of that as a recipe for meaningful change, would have been probably more realistic. And now we're just doing this show where I want to talk about all these things. And I want to try to get back to a couple more things here before we wrap up, because I find these things very fascinating. But as a counselor now, you're going to finish your work. You're going to do what you need to do. And then where does mental health go from here? My brother already asked that question, right? He's like, what can we do? What is the avenue for you to make a difference in counseling? Is there a future for mental health in this country that you see as enacting meaningful change for a great many people?
I feel like I didn't answer a couple of the questions that were asked. I think so. One thing that you asked about was, and I think this ties into what you just asked. We'll see if I can get there. My attention span is. Whew.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping in too much too. Yeah, I'll go ahead and speak freely.
In terms of self-care, and this is me, I guess, pontificating a little bit, getting on my little soapbox. There's this amazing person that I was connected with. I haven't spoken with him, but his name is Dr. Travis Heath. He works at, I think, the University of Denver or somewhere, some Denver school. He has a TED Talk called Communities of Care. And I love it because self-care, I mean, at this point, it's almost like I've heard it so much in my program. Like every class, every semester, we have to make a self-care plan. And I'm like, I'm not going to use this. And, and so it's beautiful. And there are multiple things that he talks about in that TED Talk, and I highly, highly recommend it. But one thing that he talks about is like, it is so hyper individualistic that we self-care our way out of things. He has an anecdote, I think, about this woman who had been struggling with her mental health so much. And I think Dr. Heath was like, if you could, I don't remember what the options were, but if you could either have this or have your husband like change the baby's diapers more, like which one would you choose? Or like whatever. And she's like, oh, have my husband change the baby's diapers more. And what we're asking people to do, and this gets at so much of what we're talking about today, is to self-care our way out of all of these different things that people are dealing with. And it's like for me, man, Microsoft, I signed up for a trial and I was like, I'll remember to unsubscribe. I didn't. Microsoft just charged me like $100. I'm probably in the negative. I haven't looked at my bank account, but it's like, how am I supposed to self-care? Like, can I meditate my way out of whatever you call it when you go in the negative and then they charge you more for borrowing their money?
Just get a gig job, man.
Yeah. So it's asinine. We're asking people to self-care out of exploitation. And when you put it like that, you're like, fuck. So that's kind of one thing. It's like communities of care. I think all of this needs to look more like helping each other out. Because self-care is really never self-care. It's usually there's usually another person involved. Like going to therapy isn't self-care. It's you're getting care directly, from someone. Getting a massage, that's not self-care. Someone's, putting their hands on you and rubbing you down. So I think it's really beautiful, and I think there's a lot of points that he makes in the video that I probably don't touch on, but I encourage people to watch it. So that's one thing. And I think that gets at what I think everything should look like too, is that I think we should have more lay people who are trained in, mental health processes. We should all have the capacity, and that's one thing, is a lot of people don't have the capacity. Again, capitalism. We're all, I think most people have some bandwidth to be able to support each other, and we hold space for each other when a boyfriend breaks up with us, or someone passes away. To have a more robust community system that's able to support people through this, especially during crises. Like, I don't want the police to be dealing with a mental health crisis. They're not trained to do that, and even if they were, the foundation is to aggress and to stimmy whatever. That's not their role. I don't think that they should have a role, really, but really just more community based interventions, more people helping out each other, less medication. It's not easy. It's such a convoluted thing, and I think a lot of these issues would dissipate with a better system. So that's why it's just like, I've been thinking about doing an ED for my political organization about like mental health under capitalism, because they're way more intertwined than we talk about. And so I don't know. Yeah, it's really weird to be in the space where I'm so passionate about these things, and also I'm just like, is this the best role for me? I don't know what that role is, but I think I answered that question. I think I tied them together. I think I made it.
You did. You did.
You did a great job. You did a great job. I had one more thing here from Josh. If you were doing self-care, you would stay at home and talk to yourself. LOL. Yeah. Mental health is on each person to do the majority of the work, but a support system is also important. Mikey, would you agree?
Yeah, I think there is a point where under the system, people do inevitably have to, like, people do have to do some of the work, which sucks, because I have friends who are just like so depressed and have such low self-esteem, and it makes me really fucking sad, and I can't community care their way through that. They can't self-care their way through that. And so there is a point of, someone does have to take responsibility for their own life. And it's really fucking hard when they've gone through a lot of trauma, and their mind and body have taught themselves, they've told themselves over and over again that they're worthless, and that, that they're not worth anything. And it's like, that's a lot to undo.
Yeah.
If it's a 25-year-old, it's like, that's 25 years of something that cells that fire together wire together. If you're telling yourself that every day, that synaptic connection is going to be stronger than any other, which I've struggled with a lot. I think I've said before, I used to struggle really badly with suicidal ideations. And those have gotten a lot better. I've gotten, better strategies. It's kind of wild. Like, I wouldn't call myself an expert in mental health, but I'm more so than the layperson. And there were times in, from 2016 to 2020, maybe 2020, where it was like, I was scared of myself and I didn't know whether I would see the next day, or like at one point, am I going to become like a danger to myself? So, to like barely be hanging on at some points, even though this is like one of my biggest passions, it's just kind of like, how does anyone make it? Not to, again, not to put myself on a pedestal, but I should be able to adapt more than most, with my training. And it is different, when it's yourself, but man, I know a lot of people with a lot of trauma, and it's a really, really tough thing. It's such a hurdle to overcome. We have a lot of hurting people who then get beat down by all these systems. So
yeah. I think you said it well. That's well said, Mikey. Thank you so much. This has been a very honest conversation. We covered a lot of ground here in an hour and 10 minutes. I feel like there's much more to talk about, but that's just another reason to have him on again. Whenever that time comes. I can't wait to see. It's like I get to watch you progress through your life when we check in these stages. You were here at one point, and now you're here. And next thing you know, you'll be running your own organization, and you'll have pamphlets that you'll pre-email to us prior to.
I'm going to have like a Stalin tattoo on my forehead next time. We'll see.
That would be so funny. Wasn't a good guy either. So, yeah, that didn't work out. But, communism didn't work out over, okay, whatever. Socialism and communism are different too, by the way, folks. Just letting you know. You guys should do some of your own research. If you're not familiar with how mental health works within a structure, a society, look back through history. Check it out. See what you will find. And it's frighteningly little, really. There's still so much that hasn't been uncovered about where we came from when it comes to attending our own insides here in the head, because this is something that's been starting to, although it hasn't just starting to happen. You go back thousands of years when people took care of themselves. Buddhism and yoga and stuff like that was already working on the spiritual, which that's the problem, is people also disconnect spiritual and mental health. And we also divide the health, physical and mental, etc. You know what I'm talking about.
They're so intertwined. Man, I was actually thinking about it, not to keep us going, the other day, but I think I was brushing my teeth the other day, and this is such a funny thought to me. Thank you. And I was just like, it would be so sad if I died, because I feel like I have so much to learn, like,
yes.
Oh man, I hear about kids or young adults who pass away, and I'm like, oh, there's so much knowledge that, not that knowledge is everything, but just like so much love to experience and things to learn and people to meet. I always feel so much better after talking to you two.
We love you, man. I'm so happy. When I couldn't get on earlier, I was like, oh my gosh, this is awful. Like, I put it on my phone on Facebook. I was like, I need to at least listen to him. And so, yeah, no, it's awesome.
If you wouldn't have got on, we would have booted Mike off for the next podcast, and it would have just been us two. It would have been great.
Perfect.
Fine by me. Yeah. You guys do your thing. I don't want to interfere.
No, I love
we've had Mikey on. It's been great having you here. What else can I say? I hope you guys took something from this, because I thought this was very thought-provoking, and thinking about not just your mental health, but the constructs that your mental health is defined through. Who comes up with this stuff? Where does it come from? You should really have as much knowledge as possible about the lineage and the historical background of everything that you encounter. And if you put stock into it, that's another reason to consider how important it can be to your own well-being and to the well-being of others. And on the show, we're trying to help everybody as much as we can. So I think this show did that as well as anybody in terms of the wisdom and the knowledge. So we thank Mikey so much. You can follow him on Twitter. Aaron says, you're all the best. 3 of my favorite brains. Thank you, Aaron. Yes, I promise.
Real quick.
Yeah, please do. I want to say, Aaron, you can stop, kissing up. We will hang out. I promise.
He's doing that. He's like, I think she might be the reason why we're going to meet up. Yeah. I'll make it happen, Aaron.
Go ahead, Mikey.
I can't wait to hear about that. Yeah, I just wanted to plug real quick because I am like affiliated with like a Filipino political organization. It's about the PHRA. The U.S. government has, man, I really feel like I have a tinfoil hat on now, but this is real. The U.S. government has given like hundreds of millions of dollars to the Philippine government in order because it is like a puppet regime over in the Philippines, and so basically to stymie the Philippine people. Because I'm trying to remember the percentage, but the vast majority, it's either 75% or 90% of the population in the Philippines, they're either peasants or workers. And the Philippines is using this to target different volunteers and community workers and teachers in especially in specific regions. So there are Lumad people who are being murdered right now. And there's a group called the New Bataan 5 who, essentially and sorry to end on this note, but the Philippine military, they went in and massacred them, and then planted stuff on them and made it come across like it was a firefight and that they're in the New People's Army. And so the autopsy reports came out, and they content warning, like they did really, really horrible things to their bodies, severing of limbs and reattaching them with tape. And I won't go into it any further, but it's a reason
make Leanne cry. So.
Yeah, sorry, Leanne.
It's okay.
It's a reason to support the PHRA, to pass the PHRA, which would limit funding to the Philippines, unless they kind of met this certain criteria. So there's that. And there's also, to vote Lenny Kiko. So feel free, to look into it. But I just want to say, justice for New Bataan 5.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll drop this in the live chat here. This is just one link, but it's at least a beginning spot for you to go into. And human rights.org for Filipino Human Rights Act.
Conditions are really, really bad in the Philippines, and I would be remiss if I wasn't. The elections in less than a month, so I would be remiss if I wasn't talking about things and every opportunity that I get. So
Absolutely.
As you should. You have a purpose, and you have a people, and you have a belonging and a sense of justice too. That's, if you could find a sense of justice in what you're doing as well, that is legitimate. That's even more powerful, in my opinion. Leanne just she can't handle life, so she tries to. It's not her fault. She just
man. Shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'll live with this stuff. I'll read this stuff, and I won't shed a tear. Not because it's not sad. This is
trauma.
This is the world we live in. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. It doesn't mean I'm validating it by any means.
Right.
Of course, it's terrible and awful. So.
Right.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because that's something meaningful. We don't want to end on a, hey, all right, everybody, we'll have a good night. Yeah,
this is what I'm, when I'm not in school, when I'm not here, when I'm not writing about baseball, this is the kind of stuff that I'm doing on the side. So,
Wow.
I have even more respect for you.
It means a lot to me. Yeah. Appreciate it, Cal.
Incredible young man.
Well, please follow Mike on Twitter. It's _ Kuya, Kuia, Mikey. Kuya, Mikey, Ku. Oh, did I say I? Oh my God, I'm spacing out.
You're good. I'm just kidding.
Kuya, Kuya, Mikey, Mikey. Follow him, and if you have further questions, I'm sure he'll probably answer them. You can DM him, but you have to follow him too. Remember, he has strict Twitter rules now. So
true. I won't see it, or you can DM
that's right.
me.
Exactly. So start there, and don't be cruel. That's always a good slogan for us. I guess Elvis got that one right. Don't be cruel. So got a lot of other things wrong. So seem to be cruel. Elvis actually could have learned from himself. He was very cruel to himself. Maybe he didn't really take that lesson in. So, anyways, me and Leanne will be back next week. We'll do another show. Leanne, we got the book club rolling along with Untamed by Glennon Doyle, which is pretty good. These books, you never know. I'm so sorry, Mikey. I regretted this. I talked about it on air, but we did White Fragility a couple years ago, and I didn't realize how terrible a book it was until after the fact. And, which I came clean on that. So.
In fairness, in 2020, I was recommending it to people, and I hadn't read it.
Okay, good. Then you're just like us.
Tenets of it. But yeah, it's really the same. It's the same issue. It's whitewashing thing. It's hyper individualistic. It's kind of reform over,
and it's insidious with her background of who she was and what she was doing. Yeah. That was,
and like,
if you understand what that was, then you know exactly what Mikey was talking about this whole show.
And a white woman making that like millions of dollars off of that, it's like, it's not a good look. So,
classic America.
We live and we learn. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
You just listen to the New York Times bestsellers list.
Yeah, that's something I would avoid as well.
Yeah.
But yes, we do good stuff, and we've had some great books. I mean, I thought the Matthew McConaughey book, which was just him talking about his life, was actually highly inspiring at times. So you never know what a book will offer. And this one, Untamed by Glennon Doyle, she's just talking raw about stuff that happened in her life and how she found a better way forward to be her true self outwardly, and that's what's. I dig that kind of stuff. She also talks about addiction and recovery and stuff, and I found a lot of connection with her in this book so far. So if you want to join us, Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we have a Zoom link we can share with you. Just email the show, firstdaypod@gmail.com. That's it.
I really do. I'm just going to say one last thing about that book club, because it doesn't matter what book we have. It's the conversation that happens during that hour that really is
very tight an hour.
That it is. Start on time, end on time.
That's right.
But it's that conversation, because I don't think we've had one book that everybody has just agreed and been like, oh yes, that's the book. Everybody has had like, no, I don't agree with this. I don't agree with that. And so the conversation that's happening in that room is really, really inspiring and really, it's really good. So
yeah, there are people we didn't know. We didn't know each other for the most part until we started doing it. And we have like 10 people that are there all the time. And yeah, we ripped on the last book. Wow. The Ariana Huffington book was terrible. So surprisingly, Mikey. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Mikey. We love you, man. Take care of yourself. Whatever we can do to support you, just keep us updated on stuff, and we'll try to share it on the show too. Okay.
You know what? Yes. Thank y'all.
We love you.
All right. Thanks everybody for the First Day Podcast.
Bye.